And a good Tuesday evening, everybody. Welcome to the late edition, if you will. It's official on the air for this week as we recap a big week in racing and look at 5 hot topics each and every week around the racing industry. They're sitting in boardrooms and ballrooms in Tucson, Arizona, talking about all the problems in horse racing this week at the Racing Symposium in Tucson. Jeff Siegel, we just get to sit here amongst ourselves and try to figure it all out. How you doing this week?
I'm doing great. I hope they've come up with some solutions down there. I know what the problems are. I don't know what the solutions are, but maybe they can help us out down there. I haven't been to one of those since 1976. That's true.
I've been there a little sooner than you, but not for a while. That's for sure. A lot of golf and a lot of poker played there. That much I know.
Yeah. No, I remember going down there. I was working for Hollywood Park, and they were talking about something about the 200th anniversary of the country. It was so they were trying to plan some promotion around that.
Yes.
1976. I think we came up with something, but I can't remember what. Anyway,
we'll recap any good news that comes out of the Tucson conference, though, tongue in cheek and all kidding aside. We will recap some in next week's It's Official podcast that we do each and every Tuesday. So when this week's banter and discussions give us some topics and something to chew on for next week, we'll certainly hit that. But we'll get into our 5 topics this week in horse racing as we start off with Chad Brown having a pretty good weekend. He's used to these boutique meets, Jeff, but he got out the broom, the sweep, and the dustpan, not in his backyard at Saratoga, but at Del Mar instead over the weekend. Let's talk first about his Hollywood Derby winner. This is Program Trading in action.
Program Trading is swooped up on the far outside with Webslinger right behind him as they come into the final furlong. And here's Program Trading up and after the lead from Silver Knot. Webslinger is closing down the outside. Program Trading, Webslinger, these two coming down to the line. Program Trading in the Hollywood Derby.
Well, that Virginia Derby at Colonial sure is looking good since then, right? Integration, the winner of that race, has come out to win big-time stakes in the fall. And here we get the follow-up going west with Program Trading. So Virginia Derby, the key 3-year-old race this year.
Yeah, and that was his only defeat, Program Trading, and nothing wrong with going down to that colt interpretation. But he had won his first 3, finished a really good second after leading the way in the furlong pole, and then here taken off pace slightly, and then was able to prevail and did it the right way. He's a versatile 3-year-old. He's a English bred. And he should be nothing but better as a 4-year-old. I don't think he's going to run back early in the season, according to Chad. I think he's going to give him some time off now and let him grow up. But he's got a chance to be a major player, obviously, as a 4-year-old in the grass division. And Webslinger, I mean, he's maybe not a great horse, but it takes a pretty good one to beat him. Let's put it that way. And he's had a lot more experience. This was his 13th start, 4 wins, 4 seconds. Thoroughly genuine and consistent, a very legitimate edition of the Hollywood Derby, a grade 1 and deservedly so. I think these are good colts. I think they're going to take up where they belong when they graduate to the 4-year-old ranks. So Program Trading, Webslinger, nice.
And we wouldn't be talking brooms, sweeps, and dustpans if there was only one victory for Chad Brown. Of course, he has the dominant barn in the filly and mare turf division in the United States. We've seen this so many times. Think of the Diana Stakes at Saratoga, where top 3, top 4 finishes in that race are nothing new for Brown. He's done it. He's won that race 7 of the last 8 years. Well, he sent out his brigade to Del Mar over the weekend, and they matched up in the matriarch. And yes, they ran 1, 2, 3, and 4, led by Surge Capacity. Maybe not the one you thought would be the one on top. Let's go back and listen into Larry Comus's call.
Coming wide is Fluffy Socks, Queen Goddess, and on the inside, Surge Capacity. They're into the stretch, and White Beam has taken charge. Surge Capacity is bottled up in traffic. Fluffy Socks is closing on the far outside. Elm Drive there, too, with Ruby Nell. Fluffy Socks takes the lead. Surge Capacity rolls up the rail and gets there. Surge Capacity and Fluffy Socks together on the wire in the matriarch.
We've seen it before with Chad. So if the people want to say the Southern California turf group is so bad that Chad Brown went west and ran 1, 2, 3, 4, he does it at Saratoga. He does it in the Beverly D over the years. I mean, he's had some unbelievable sweeps when you talk about the Philly Mare Turf division. Just another one here. Your takeaways for the matriarch, Jeff.
Oh, it's a terrific race. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, all 4 of those fillies are good. Surge Capacity is the 3-year-old beating older. Did it the right way, showed a great turn of foot in the final 50 to tag Fluffy Socks, who had made that big round sweeping move, looked like the winner. White Beam, who I liked, had a great trip, found herself pressing a fast pace, but that might be where she wanted to be and put away the other speed. So she ran well. So, I mean, it's just a typical Chad Brown. He does it every year with. Now he's got a new contingent. So Fluffy Socks has been around a while, but Surge Capacity is the new star. And I'm glad to see Flincher getting a good racehorse. He hasn't been the most popular or most successful stallion. He certainly was a terrific horse. He's got a right to get a good grass horse. Seems to me that he may not be successful, but he was eligible to come up with something this good. And Surge Capacity is this good and a very legitimate renewal of the matriarch.
And you have that Philly and Mare Turf on the Pegasus World Cup undercard now in late January, that these kind of fillies and mares have an early season target that they may want to hit. So might see them again. Certainly Chad will have a say in the Pegasus Philly and Mare Turf when we get to that race in late January. Let's go to our second topic on the board this week. The Cigar Mile was the big race in New York over the past weekend. Grade 2 race there, and it was a smoking performance. In handicapping this race on our Friday First Call podcast, I thought there was too much speed in the race. I was only half right. There was too much speed, but Hoist the Gold had all of it.
Hoist the Gold went 109 flat for 3/4 of a mile and is still there. It's Hoist the Gold. Hoist the Gold is just striding away now 5 lengths in front. This is a huge effort in the Cigar Mile. Hoist the Gold for Hall of Famer Johnny Velasquez just opening up on this field. Hoist the Gold is almost there. Senor Buscador for second, but Hoist the Gold wins the Cigar Mile. It's all Hoist the Gold. Senor Buscador. Then came a photo to the inside there. That was Castle Chaos with 3 technique. Final running time, 1 minute 34 and 1.
Racehorse performance. And you hear these cliches around handicappers a lot of times, and you say, what does it really look like? Ran them off their feet. That's what it looked like right there. That was the quintessential run them off their feet performance by Hoist the Gold.
It's funny you bring up the pace situation. I actually like Hoist the Gold, but I thought he'd sit in mid-pack, And then, he's 8-1, and he was coming to that really hot Breeders' Cup sprint race. If you go back and watch the video of that race, you see that even though he was out-footed, he stayed on willingly and actually galloped out well. So I'm thinking, here's a horse who's been sprinting all his life. Maybe he'll like the mile, but not on the front end. But once he broke well and established the pace, I thought he was in decent shape. And the other one I liked was Senor Buscador, who rallied from dead last to be a very good second. So to me, it was a formful race, even though it was on a muddy or sealed track, which may or may not have moved up Hoist the Gold. I don't know. He'd only had one prior start. But he earned a 109 buyer number. This was his 26th career start, and it took him this long to get up to 109, so much so that Dallas Stewart is now talking about sending him over to the Saudi Cup. This race was a very good race to win. It's no longer a grade 1, but this was a good race. But it was a $500,000 race. The Saudi Cup, by the way, is $20 million. I think I might try it as well, especially since it is a one-turn mile and an eighth. And with this kind of speed, I can envision Hoist the Gold getting the lead, and then we'll see what he can do with it. But it's actually a good idea for a sound 4-year-old son of Mineshaft. Again, 25 starts already, never been better. And I would think that he will have a very good year next year, as should Senor Buscador, who is ticketed now for the Pegasus World Cup. Comes from way out of it, doesn't seem to have any tactical speed, needs a little help up front. But when he gets it, he can be tough, and who knows what will happen there. But this was a very legitimate race for the Cigar Mile. Again, not a grade 1, but a grade 1 performance based on the speed figure, the 109 buyer that Hoist the Gold got.
We talk about the great thing about racing is how it rejuvenates itself every year, right? There's like horses just kind of come into new roles every season and replace other ones who are, getting up in age or going to the retirement shed. Senor Buscador has thrown his hat in the ring. to replace Stiletto Boy on the handicap.
Yeah, right.
He can do anything. He'll travel anywhere. He's always going to run his race. Every once in a while, he's going to pop one of these big ones and can be a very, very productive horse at a myriad of distances at any racetrack. So we need horses like that in the handicap or sprint or middle distance division. Senor Buscador seems to check a lot of those boxes. So he's a good horse to have in training next year. Hopefully he can run in a lot of the big races and, help bolster those fields because he's always a contender when he's in there. He may not be the headline star, but you need horses like that to make great betting races.
You make a lot of money running second and third when you're running for 20 million. I can tell
well,
you.
that's true. That's absolutely.
So he'll be there, and he's a neat horse. He really is. We had him out here in California, and he did pretty well. In fact, he won a race called the San Diego at Del Mar earlier this year, and it was a respectable fourth in Pacific Classic. So good race, good productive race, I think.
We don't know how many headlines we'll make with Senor Buscador, but as we go back to our headlines, this is one we don't really want to talk about, but it's in the news, and it's big news. Judge in California has elected that justifies disqualification is legitimate for the 2018 Santa Anita Derby, and Mick Ruiz and the runner-up Bolt d'Oro have won their case in court and could be getting a check in the mail sometime soon unless there's another stage to the legislative process as we go through. But justified, disqualified from the 2018 Santa Anita Derby, Jeff. Of course, I tried to do a timeline for this because I wanted to kind of give the fans a sense of everything that happened along the way. My graphic got so muddled that I just scrapped it after like 2 or 3 tries. It's too hard to explain everything that went down. But the gist of it is there was a positive test that came out a couple days after the Santa Anita Derby. April 18th, they were notified of a positive test when Justify won the Santa Anita Derby. About 10 days before that, the split sample was requested. The result of the split sample doesn't come back until after the Kentucky Derby. There's nothing they can do to stop anything with the Kentucky Derby. It's not even known in the public at this point. Justify not only wins the Kentucky Derby, but goes on to win the Preakness, the Belmont Stakes. And it's a full year later until we find out anything at all because of a story in the New York Times that there was a positive to start with, that the CHRB and the California stewards did not make public throughout the course of this entire fiasco with how it was handled in the positive for Justify back in his Kentucky Derby prep race. We can't go back and relitigate the past. We saw what we saw on the racetrack, but what do you make of all this?
Well, first of all, I had a filly named Lady Blessington back in the mid-'90s who won a stakes at Santa Anita and got disqualified for the same thing, scopolamine. Didn't make me real happy. I wish they would have swept that under the table. But anyway, so I was a little sympathetic towards Mick Ruiz, although I don't know much about the drug. They say it's not a performance-enhancing drug. That's what they're. Okay, it's fine. And why are we messing with it if it doesn't make all this faster? But anyway, the lawsuit actually was not against the owners or Bob Baffert. It was against the California Horse Racing Board for not allowing the stewards to disqualify. They came down with their own ruling. I don't know why they were trying to do that. There was a timeline situation there where they had reclassified the drug, but at the time of the race, they hadn't actually implemented that. So that was a problem. The bottom line, though, is so Mick Ruiz now gets $400,000 more because he already got the 200. Now he's going to get 600. I wonder if that covered the fees. I'm not even sure it did. But as for Justify, I don't really think it's going to matter too much. I mean, he is what he is, and he is probably one of the 2 or 3 most prolific stallions in the entire world with a stud fee that's $200,000 or more. I don't think it's going to hurt him, and I don't think anybody's going to remember anything less of him. That he's not an undefeated horse, so it's much to do about nothing. Although $400,000, they'll have to.
Well, tell that to Mick Ruiz.
Yeah, right, that's fine, But in terms of the connections for Justify, they'll just, whatever, and go from there. But that's the only way you could beat Justify in the courts, and that's what happened.
Right. There's, some of the articles written about it, mentioned that the drug there could be, a bronchial deal and increase airflow and things like that. So there is the potential for some performance enhancing with what was going on. We don't know. Again, we can't go back, right? We can't go back and change that. All we can do is speculate and kind of look now and try to figure these things out in hindsight. Is there an asterisk next to Justify as a Triple Crown winner? Probably not any different based on this ruling, because this ruling doesn't talk about the guilt or innocent of the drug and everything that went on with it. It was the procedural violation of the California Horse Racing Board not going through with the disqualification as their rules say that it should be. So it was a rules interpretation more than anything. So this isn't going to change the court of public opinion. If you think Justify was a horse who came along and debuted, February the 18th of his 2-year-old season and was able to win the Kentucky Derby with zero foundation underneath him, if you think that was a super horse who's doing super things at stud, then you're going to continue to believe that. If you're skeptical and side-eyed about how it happened and how that horse rose to, dominance so quickly out of nowhere, then you're going to remain skeptical. This is horse racing, and this is what we have. But, Jeff, I have the solution.
Which is?
History has a funny way of working these things out. We're going to solve the debate between Justify and Bolt D'Oro once and for all. It's in the 9th race on Friday at Oaklawn, the Advent Stakes for 2-year-olds. Right next to each other in the starting gate is Justify's son, Valentine Candy, the 10. And right next to him is Bolt D'Oro's son, Bye Bye Liam, the 11. So you get Justify, Bolt D'Oro. They're running the Advent Stakes for $150,000. Maybe we can settle it once and for all in the track at Oaklawn.
Bragging rights. Well, all I know is I remember watching the Santa Anita Derby with Justify beating Bolt D'Oro. Lots of debates because Bolt D'Oro at that time was more accomplished than Justify. And I was pretty confident that Justify would win that race. He did. And that's Justify I'm going to remember anyway.
Michael Rona had the call that day. Let's listen in and go back in time for the 2018 Santa Anita Derby.
It's Justified by length and a quarter. Bolt D'Oro taking a run at him, but really having to be pushed on by Castellano. Smith looks confident on Justify reaching the top of the stretch. Back in third is Core Beliefs, then Instilled Regard, Pepe Tonio. Justify leading past the 8th pole. He's a couple of lengths in front. Bolt D'Oro is closing on the inside. It's Justify by 3/4 of a length. Bolt D'Oro trying ever so hard, but Justify, another exhilarating exhibition by this supremely gifted athlete. He's on a dizzying ascent to greatness, winning the Santa Anita Derby clearly from Bolt D'Oro, followed in by Core Beliefs and Instilled Regard.
Just for the sake of clarity, we talk about how it's $400,000 in additional purse money. Bolt D'Oro got $200,000 for running second in that race. The winner's share was $600,000, so he gets elevated. The other horses in that race also get elevated by placing. So Justify gets disqualified from all purse money. So if you ran second, third, fourth, fifth in that year's Santa Anita Derby, there is also money coming to you. So a little housekeeping there. Not going to affect our listeners out there, I don't think, but for others that are curious, like how does that work? It's not just that the money gets taken from Justify's connections and given to Bolt D'Oro's connections. All the purse money will be reallocated and moved up, with Justify taking out of the purse situation if it holds in court. But I guarantee you there's going to be another appeal of this decision at some point.
The appeal will be made. This story is not over, which is fine because it gives us another topic to discuss 4 months from now or 6 months from now. We can revisit it.
It could be 2 more years. We may not even have a podcast at that point until we get
we'll come back and have a special one just in case.
Okay, that's I promise.
If this is still going on.
All right, that's a deal. I'll meet you back here in 2 years to talk about the appeal. Let's go to topic 4 on the board this week, our Triple Crown tracker. That was the Triple Crown of 2018 we've been waxing nostalgic about here over the last few minutes. The Triple Crown tracker for 2024 is already up and running. It was Dornoch in the Remsen Stakes with a unconventional path to the winner's circle.
Here comes the big bounding strides of Sierra Leone from the back of the field. Up top, it's the top of the stretch, and it's Dornoch who's kicked. Dornoch is now opening up that margin. It's Dornoch who's up by 3-4 wide, just ducked in there. Sierra Leone is rolling. Here comes the big bounding strides of Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone from last to first. This is a big effort. Battling on is Dornoch, who's back to second. Sierra Leone is lugging in. Dornoch is coming back. Dornoch not done. It's going to be a photo, and I think Dornoch got there. Believe the magic Dornoch, battles back. Sierra Leone is in the photo. Then came, drum roll, please. It's a tight photo. It looked like Dornoch in the Remsen.
Indeed, it was Dornoch. Jeff, horses lose the lead and battle back on occasion. It's rare that it happens, but they rarely lose the lead by like a length and a quarter and come back and win like this. Incredible effort, good inside part of the track. What are we looking at here?
Well, we're looking at two good colts. I mean, talk about Dornoch, who won the race. This was just his fourth career start, but it was just the second career start for Sierra Leone. So, I mean, these are two good colts, especially when you consider that the 91 Beyer speed figure legitimizes the race. Now, granted, it was over a muddy track, but that's fine. It shows that they can handle an off track if need be. Dornoch, of course, full brother to Mage, and he was visually impressive when he broke his maiden at Keeneland. Impressive from the standpoint of he won despite not having a clue as what he was doing. I mean, he was lugging in, wrong lead. And here's the thing about Dornoch. He's beautifully bred by Good Magic. He's obviously a full brother to the Derby winner. Got a lot of scope, big, good-looking, strong colt, good tactical speed. His numbers have risen with every start. There's much to like about Dornoch. He's already been a mile and eighth as a 2-year-old, which means the distance shouldn't be any issue at all if he's still in good form on the first Saturday in May. My only concern, though, Jeremy, is that he's not a real good athlete, if you know what I mean. He's kind of borderline clumsy. There's a tremendous engine there. He's got power and strength and ability, but he doesn't want to change leads. He changed leads very roughly at the April. It looked like he lugged in and hit the rail. And to his credit, he was able to overcome that. But he was also on the lead every step of the way. He wasn't taking any dirt in his face, and he wasn't being, bumped and jostled. Does that concern you a little bit? Because I mean, I don't know whether he can pull that stunt in a 20-horse field.
No, you got to clean up your act at some point, right? Efficiency, horses that get everything out of every stride. They don't waste any effort. They don't waste any, advantages that they have. Tongue in cheek, Jeff, I consider myself a pretty good visual handicapper, and I think I have a good memory. And watching Dornoch run, and I'm thinking Dornoch, knock door, Dornoch, knock door. I've seen this before. I've seen this on video somewhere before. And I dug around a little bit this weekend. I finally figured out where it was.
Come and knock on our door. Come and knock on our door. We've been waiting for you. We've been waiting for you. Where the kisses are hers and his, three's company too.
That's what it was. Dornoch is John Ritter. Can't ride the bike straight. You see, falling off into the sand. They're always leaning left. They're always, into the rail. This is the second time this horse has had some problems. So unless Jack Tripper cleans up his act a little bit, Dornoch is going to have to get better to go down to Florida and beat the big boys down there. Sierra Leone, you would expect, that runner to also be in Florida this winter, and we could see them rematch again at Gulfstream Park. And, Gulfstream's going to have some mile and a 16th races early in the Holy Bull and the Fountain of Youth. And maybe those mile and a 16th kind of trips, you might get away with it with the short stretch run. But when you start getting to the mile and an eighth, the mile and a quarter, you cannot give away any of these advantages. So let's hope Dornoch can clean it up.
Now, as far as Sierra Leone, let's give him a little credit, too. He's got a right to be pretty good.
Yes.
Gunrunner Colt, $2.3 million basic Tipton Saratoga yearling purchase. Broke his maiden November 4th, going a one-turn mile. Did it stylishly. Comes right back and runs a winning race. Coming back in a month with that one maiden one-turn race under his belt. Hits the front. Maybe I don't know whether he proved whether he pulled himself up or whether the other colt came on. We can debate that. Time will tell. But I can tell you one thing: Chad Brown. He might have been happy with his sweeps in California, but he might be just as happy with knowing that he's got a real prospect here based on pedigree and looks and ability. Sierra Leone is a major contender because he's going to get nothing but better. And they learned something maybe that they don't have to move too soon with him either. Let's wait a little bit and keep going. And these two might meet again sometime soon in the winter.
And the owner of Sierra Leone, Tabor Magner Smith, the big Coolmore group from England, maybe they've got it taken care of stateside that they don't need to bring City of Troy over here for the Kentucky Derby. They can keep that one on the grass. They've got some very interesting 2-year-olds in the Coolmore colors for sure, turning 3 here in another month's time. So that's our Triple Crown tracker. Dornoch, Sierra Leone, really good top 2 finishers, but will that result repeat itself down the line, or are we going to see the runner-up overtake the top winner in there? That seems to be a little bit more the lean from Jeff and I at this point. Now let's look for our stars of tomorrow as we wrap up our 5 topics this week. We're always looking for a good 2-year-old, 3-year-old coming out of the maiden ranks. Sometimes the 3-year-olds take a while to get to the races, and when it takes all the way to December, you wonder what you've got for $750,000. Turns out Richard Mandela's got a pretty nice one if he can keep her together.
Now Make It Snow begins to move a bit on the outside, but Llorona is still in hand with 1 furlong to run and 4 lengths out in front. Make It Snow second, Sultry Kitten is third, and then side by side, Llorona looking good in her debut. Cruz is home to victory in hand by 6 lengths, maybe even 7 on the wire. Then Make It Snow, Sultry Kitten, and Dancing Mo.
So it's Llorona. I did not take Spanish. I can't roll my R's, and the double L is a Y. I take Larry Combs's word for all of the pronunciations in this particular case. But Jeff, Llorona, it took a long time to get to the races, but it seems like it could be worth it if she can stay sound.
Yeah, she was actually entered in a 2-year-old 5-furlong turf sprint at Del Mar a year ago, late August. I know because I ran a filly in that race, first-time starter who ended up going off favorite in that race and got beat, finished third, got beat a half length. But before the race, I was kind of smoking out the opposition, and there was 3 or 4 first-time starters in there, and I was asking one of the private clockers, what about this one? Well, you can beat her. What about that one? You can beat her. What about Llorona? He says, you can't beat her. She got scratched, which didn't exactly, hurt my feelings in any way. But she finally makes it back after, 14, 15 months after being entered. Shows up here, trained really well in the morning, so not a surprise. She is a half-sister to Corniche, who was such a good colt for Bob Baffert a couple of years back. Wins this race by almost 6 lengths, never takes a deep breath. And she is, I don't know how ambitious Mandela will get with her right off the bat. There's always the La Brea and those kind of races that she could point for, or maybe just wait and then give her a non-winner as a 2-run and then go after stakes fillies. There's a good races in the winter for fillies, sprinting fillies, and this filly looks like she'll run long too. So anyway, the bottom line is better late than never, and it's late, but it's certainly not never. For Llorona, or however you pronounce it. I can't roll my R's either. So anyway, whatever it is, you just remember her, daughter of Mendelssohn, and she will be one to pay attention to very closely next winter at Santa Anita.
Yeah, you would think if she has some stardom about her, like a couple of races down the line, you could look at something like the Apple Blossom by the end of the spring at Oaklawn. If you have a star filly to hit the road, there is that Distaff Division headline race before you get around the Breeders' Cup prep time. There is that kind of first half of the year race that's out there as a target. But that's a lot to ask for a filly who, again, has made just the one career start through this point in December. But she looks like she's got some talent. Now she's got the maiden win on her form. They're going to look to get some black type on her form as well, because she'll be a valuable broodmare, of course, like you said, as a sister to Corniche, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner. And by Mendelssohn, there's a lot of turf. There's a lot of win early. There's a lot to like about that as a pedigree. So she's got a career as a broodmare ahead of her as well. That will wrap up our 5 topics for this week. Let's review them on the board, and we talk about the broom sweep and dustpan for Chad Brown winning the Hollywood Derby and then running 1, 2, 3, 4 in the matriarch with his shippers from New York to Del Mar. The Smoke and Cigar performance was on the front end by the Breeders' Cup Sprint alumnus Hoist the Gold, who stretched out to a mile and smoked them in the Cigar Mile easily at Aqueduct. The judge took down Justify. We've got a disqualification that Looks like it may be upheld now of Justify in the 2018 Santa Anita Derby for a positive test that wasn't adjudicated by the rules, according to the courts. Our Triple Crown tracker took you to New York for the Remsen Stakes, where Dornoch re-rallied on the inside to beat Sierra Leone in a good 1-2 finish of horses we expect to see this winter in Florida. And our star of the future is Llorona. She is for Richard Mandela, 3-year-old filly making a late debut, but an impressive one. These 5 topics are now official because Jeff Siegel and I said so. That's how we play the game here on It's Official. Sometimes we have an extra topic to throw at you. We've got some time this week, so let's talk bonus topics. Jeff and I, you guys know, you follow us. We're big college sports fans. His Bruins, my Sooners. College football playoff field was announced, the field of 4 for the college football playoffs on ESPN over the weekend. Here's the way it shook out. These graphics from ESPN's X account. Michigan, Washington, Texas, and the controversial choice, perhaps, of Alabama getting the 4 spot over Florida State, who was undefeated. Now, we're not here to talk college football per se, but we're sports fans, and we're talking about the debate of record and resume versus the eye test, Jeff. And as horse players and handicappers, we deal with this every single day, right? If you look down at the past performances of your race, are you just looking strictly at the record of the horses and saying that's the best horse? I need to make the bet on this horse. Are you looking strictly at one thing like a speed figure and a data point? Or are you looking at a combination of everything and your eye test of what you've seen in the workouts? We handicappers deal with this every single minute. Every single minute that we look at the past performances and evaluate a race. It's funny for me to see the sports media and the general public go absolutely berserk that there's like some discussion on whether or not you could decide something one way or the other. As we know, as horse players, none of this is cut and dry, right? So what's the big fuss?
Well, you're talking about, as a handicapper, you're talking about predicting the result of the race. Excuse me.
Right.
Yeah. A cold call. Yeah. So it's okay. I mean, you might see, you might figure that, okay, that horse beat this horse, but I think the horse that got beat is better, and I think he'll prove it when they run against each other. So you don't have to worry about resumes so much. It's more the eye test. It's more like, okay, I know what happened, but my goal is to try to figure out what will happen, because that's what I'm betting on. Okay. However, if you're talking about something that you're trying to judge a championship or compare 2 teams' resume for the purpose of advancing to a situation. And in our sport, it would be like, okay, I got to vote for the Eclipse Award. Who do I think deserves it? Right. I would vote for the horse that had the resume. Who deserves it? Not who I think should have won or didn't win or whatever like that. So I remember back in 1989, as you do, it was Sunday Silence versus Easy Goer for the champion 3-year-old and horse of the year. And I remember it being pretty cut and dry. They ran against each other 4 times. Sunday Silence beat Easy Goer in the Derby and the Preakness and the Breeders' Cup Classic. There really wasn't much debate there, right? Right. And I remember a particular turf rider saying that he voted for Easy Goer because he thought Easy Goer was a better horse. I don't know how he came up with that conclusion, but that's what he said. He said, I'm going to say that he was a better horse. And I'll tell you why, he said, because he had faster thoroughgraph sheet numbers. Right. As if that was the defining reason why he should be the Eclipse Award, because he had faster numbers. Which, either way, if you remember, there was a lot of figure guys who went to went to the end of the year saying that, all right, I'm voting for Sunday Silence. He won 3 out of 4, but Easy Goer was better. But I can't vote for him. But this one turf rider said, I'm just going to vote for the best horse. And I think Easy Goer is the best horse. All right. Anyway, so that's different. So when I saw this voting here for who was allowed to get into the championship, and obviously Florida State was not, I thought, all right, if you're going to tell me that Alabama is a better team than Florida State, I'm not going to argue with you, but that's not the point. The point is, it's who deserves to go there, who undefeated, and the other team got beat and came within a Hail Mary of not even getting there in the first place in the second to last game. I said, maybe you can make a case that Alabama is one of the top 4 teams in the country, but that doesn't mean they should be in the title. Otherwise, I mean, I remember I got that banner behind me of the Rams winning the Super Bowl, but I went to that 49er game from the national, the final, the divisional
NFC championship. Yeah.
49ers should have won that game. That doesn't mean they should have gone to the Super Bowl. They lost.
Right.
What am I supposed to say? Well, they were better, so let them go to the Super Bowl. No, you go by the results. Florida State got jobbed. I'm sorry.
That's probably the case. I wouldn't disagree with that they got the short end of the stick. If we go to the horse racing realm of selecting fields by committees and panels, there's talk, when we get to the Breeders' Cup, there's oversubscription. So many spots are selected, and then a Breeders' Cup committee will select who gets in on the fringe of the field. We already have a little bit of that. I would rue the day that the Kentucky Derby is determined that way. I like the fact that there is a set structured point system. You already know what the rules are. Get your points, don't get your points. But there's nobody coming along trying to make those subjective decisions then at that point. And so that's why I like the system that we have in place in horse racing. So while we try to figure out what's screwed up with horse racing all over the desert in Tucson this week and try to fix everything, one of the things that's not wrong with horse racing, that's wrong in some other sports like we see here with college football, is we're allowing panels and people like that not to have set rules and just kind of make their decisions where political interest, all kinds of different things get into the mix. Could you imagine if we were selecting the field for the Kentucky Derby and it's the first year Bob Baffert's allowed back and there's a bunch of panelists in there who were people who banned him the year before and the year before at Churchill Downs or something? It would just make for a horrible conflict of interest. And so we don't need that. Have set rules in place on how fields are selected and how things go down. And then everybody knows the rules ahead of time. That's why I never get upset around Kentucky Derby time when somebody says, well, I would have got the points if X, Y, Z would have happened. Then run in the darn races. You knew the schedule was printed back in like September the previous year of what the races are and all the points that are out there. Map your plan out. And if your horse comes up short on points, that's your fault, or just the racing gods didn't give you enough starts and health with your horse to make it to the races. So in this particular case, horse racing trumps college football in the way that we're selecting our championship race, the Kentucky Derby. So that's the point I want to leave here. Somewhere along the line, we'll probably screw it up.
Well, next year we'll be arguing about who the 12th and the 13th team should be and whether the 13th team got job, because next year the playoffs 12 teams, which is great. Play it out, but the bottom line though is that if you're not going to count wins and losses, then what's the point? And it's just your opinion then, and you might not even be right. Maybe. By the way, it's going to be a heck of a Rose Bowl game here. I can't wait to see it. But Alabama, Michigan, and that'll. I think that's what they had their eye on. I think after TCU last year, they don't want another. Wipeout.
Yeah, and we could talk deserving, and deserving even a subjective word, right? Because what exactly is deserving to one is not to the other, but. If you want to argue against Florida State just for being fair and balanced, they're 13.5-point underdogs against Georgia, who also isn't in the playoffs in their Orange Bowl matchup. So if you thought they belonged and deserved in the college football playoff, they're 13.5-point underdogs.
Well, by the way,
in a non-title game.
Their backup quarterback, Florida State, isn't bad. So I think they'll – and I don't know if Georgia's going to be all that thrilled to be playing in that game. So I wouldn't be surprised if Florida State might give them a really good game.
They've got the motivation on their side. That's
who do the Sooners play?
Arizona. So I'm taking on these Tucson guys. I better not say anything bad about Tucson and Arizona in the symposium or anything between now and then. I don't want them ganging up on me. But Alamo Bowl, Arizona against Oklahoma.
Let me ask you a question real quick. Who's your quarterback for that game?
Jackson Arnold, 5-star quarterback out of Denton, Texas. Yes.
It's like the beginning
new quarterback
of spring ball for him, huh?
Yeah. So. Should be a new era unveiled. So we're looking forward to that. We've got college basketball going on. The Sooners just finished off Providence before we went live here to record this podcast. So looking forward to a big winter of sports and a big winter of racing. Santa Anita opening day coming up December 26th. We're right around the corner from that. This Friday, it's opening day at Oaklawn Park in Arkansas. Also, the California scene shifts to Los Alamitos for a couple of weeks starting this week. And in Hong Kong, big races this weekend. Jeff Hong Kong Mile, Hong Kong Voss. House coming up over the weekend. So we're going to have a lot to talk about next week.
Yeah, no, good racing continues as we gear up for Santa Anita, day after Christmas. Of course, Gulfstream Park is in full flight. But you mentioned Oakland. I didn't count them up, but I think there's like 230 horses entered in the first 2 days there. I mean, what big fields. I mean, what a great, and the purses are like way out of sight. I mean, that's.
I'll say this, and I've said this on our Night School podcast over the years, but if you're a newer handicapper, I'll leave this thought. Oaklawn is a great track to handicap for a newer handicapper because they only run races at about 3-4 distances.
Right.
5.5 at the beginning of the meet, but generally it's 6 furlongs, a mile, and a mile and a 16th. That's it. There's no turf course. There's not a lot of shippers. You get some horses once the meet settles in. So it's a very comfortable handicapping environment, not a lot of variables. And if you're a newer handicapper, get in there, hone your skills on that sort of set, and it's a good track to learn how to handicap from. So, and good level of racing. Yeah, you get some claimers, you get some upper level horses. But I think Oaklawn is very good. So if you're a newer handicapper and you're looking for what track should I be playing, Oaklawn, which opens on Friday, I think is a good destination for you. Jeff and I will recap opening weekend at Oaklawn, Hong Kong, everything going on around the world next week on the It's Official podcast. And we'll preview it this Friday when we reconvene for the First Call podcast. Be on the lookout for that at all your favorite podcast channels, audio and visual. On behalf of Jeff Siegel and everybody with First, hope you have a great week. We'll talk to you on Friday.